Okay, just we'll hit the ground running today. We left off yesterday talking about percents. And we did some word problems with percents and some practice calculating with percents. So just to kind of review today, I want to look at some applications. One application of percents is commission. Now, as machinists, you guys probably won't work on commission. There's a chance you could end up in a shop where you work on piece rate or have a piece rate bonus. But some of you will eventually move up into positions where you might be a rep or a sales rep, selling your products to other vendors, especially if you are a first stage manufacturer and not a final product manufacturer. So let's take a peek at commission and how it all works. So in commission, you get paid as a percentage of your sales. So let's say you are put on an 8% commission, and you go out and for that week you have $12,600 in sales. So you have the 8%, that's 8 over 100. To find your amount of commission, you're going to find 8% of the 12,600 in sales. So the 8% represents the commission. 100% has to represent the whole sales, because that's where you're taking your commission out of. So we can cross multiply and divide here. 8 times 12,600 divided by 100. It was $1,008 in your commission. Not too hard to do. But if you're going to be doing this calculation over and over again every week, setting up this proportion is a little bit of a clumsy way of doing it. Most of our word problems, it helps us to make sure we don't make any mistakes, to make sure we get things matched up correctly. But here, and since it's a commission, we know that every week or every period, we're going to be taking your sales times that commission rate divided by 100. So here's one of those cases, as we mentioned yesterday, where using the rate method makes sense. Because you're never going to have to go backwards. You're always going to be just multiplying by that percent or that rate. So for this one, you could take your sales of 12,600 and multiply, what's 8% going to be as a rate? 0.08. That'll give you the 1,008 commission. So for commissions, it's one of the applications that I had mentioned that using the rate method is simpler, is desirable. Now, a lot of jobs don't do straight commission. They do some sort of a plus. Could be salary plus or a wage plus. So let's say that you are working this commission job, a sales job. And what they're going to do is they're going to give you this. $300 per week plus 6% commission. Normally the percent is going to be lower on these because you're getting this initial amount. So you're going to get $300 regardless of whether you make any sales at all. So let's say you have a week where your weekly sales are $11,200. To calculate your pay for the week, take the 11,200 times 0.06, good. 672, is that correct? Okay. $672 commission, but of course we cannot forget the $300 salary. It's $972 is going to be your total pay. Often when you have a salary plus commission, like I said, you either get a smaller commission rate or they do something like this to you. Let's say they're going to give you $400 per week plus 9% on sales over $4,000. So what this is saying is, you do get a commission on sales, but this $400 per week, they're expecting you to do something for it. You can't just sit at home for the week and not sell anything and still get your $400. So they're not going to give you any commission until you get above 4,000 in sales. So they're expected that $400 a week, they're expecting you to get up to 4,000 in sales for that. So let's say you have a week where your sales are $9,200. Your pay for the week. Well, how do we calculate your commission here? Careful. We don't get a commission on the first 4,000. We got to subtract that out first. You get 5,200. That's what they call the commissionable sales. So that's the 5,200 times 0.09, which is what, 468? The 4,000 you don't count. You only get commission on the sales over 4,000. So then you get your $400 salary on top of that. It's your 868. Make sense? And there's a similar thing with wages where you get your hourly wage plus a commission. Some of those get complicated because some of those have a base amount for the week. Others have a base amount of sales per hour, so they can get kind of complicated to figure out what your base sales have to be. You're going to have something called a graduated scale, graduated commission. In a graduated commission, you might be looking at something like this. $0 to $8,000, you get 8%. 801 to $12,000, you get 9%. 12,000 plus, you get 12%. So this is saying the more you sell, the higher rate of commission you get. So let's say you have a week where your sales are $11,500. Does that mean you're going to get 9% commission on all of it? Say no. No. What it means is you're going to get the first 8,000, you're going to get 8% commission, $640. What's over 8,000, anything between 8 and 12, you're going to get the 9%. So now we got to figure out how much is above 8,000. Well, if we subtract 8,000 from this, that's 3,500, correct? What's that? Oh, here? Yeah, you're right. 8,001, thanks. So it's 3,500 times 0.09. Everybody see where the 3,500 came from? That was, we took 8,000 away from their sales because we already paid the commission on the first 8,000. There's 3,500 left. So that's going to be, what, 315? So we add that up. $955 is their commission for the week. The 12% didn't come into that one because they didn't go over $12,000 in sales. Any questions? One last thing I want to comment on about commission, because this used to be common. They've regulated it a little bit now, but it used to be very common. They would say, this is very common in the insurance industry, actually, where it really was big. But, they'd say you're going to get 8% commission with an $800 guaranteed weekly draw. And the way it was always described was, okay, you're guaranteed every week to get $800 minimum. Well, make sure you get $800 minimum no matter how much you sell. But notice it's not an $800 salary, it's an $800 draw, they call it. Let's take a look at how that works. Well, that's what we're going to see here in just a second. So in our first week, let's say our sales are $6,000. Our commission is going to be 6,000 times 0.08, which is $480. How much are you going to get paid? Guaranteed $800, right? You only earned $480. So $480 of that $800 is commission. The remaining $320 is part of the draw. So it's your commission plus your draw equals what you're getting paid here. So now in week 2, let's say you're starting to improve a bit. You have $8,000 in sales. Your commission, 8,000 times 0.08 is $640. How much are you going to get paid? $800. Guaranteed $800 a week. How much did you actually earn? $640, right? So the remaining $160 goes on your draw. So you had $320 the week before, another $160. That's at $480. In week 3, let's say you hit your stride. You sell $11,000. So 11,000 times 0.08 is $880. You just earned $880 in commission. Are you going to get paid $880? You're getting paid $800. Why? Because you owe $480 in a draw. So that extra 80, you're guaranteed to get 800. The extra 80 goes to pay back that. Your draw's down to $400 now. So if it works like this for you, where after a few weeks your commission is getting to be at or above that draw amount and you're paying it back, in a couple of months you'll be even, and then you will start to get your commissions. You know, if your commission's above 800, you'll start to get bigger checks. The problem is, what if you're not very good at sales and you don't catch on? 2 months down the road, you've never reached your $800 in commission, and you decide you don't want to do sales anymore. What do you think happens when you tell them you're not going to do it anymore? You owe them that back. You have to pay it back. And that's what was happening. Like I said, it was especially common in the insurance industry. People would get 6 months into it and realize they're not. I mean, some people just aren't good at sales. I'm not. I can't sell. You get 6 months into it and realize this job isn't for me. Oh crap! I owe like $12,000 if I want to get out of this. So it can be an issue. So make sure you're aware of that if you ever do end up in a sales position. If there's any sort of a guaranteed, make sure you know whether it's a salary or a draw.
You have the you owe 160.
Yeah, because out of it, you're getting paid 800, so there's 160 above what you've earned. So that's enough on commission for us. Let's take a look. At discounts. For you guys, if you're working for somebody else, you won't have to worry a whole lot about discounts. But if you ever go into business for yourself, start up your own shop or doing work on the side, start working with suppliers, paying market price for raw materials makes it really hard to make a profit. So what most suppliers do, if you're a good customer, if you're buying enough materials, they offer a discount. So based on your purchases from the last period, they might tell you you've bought enough that you have earned an 8% discount. They usually call it a trade discount because you're in the trade and you are a regular customer, they'll give you a discount. Partly because they know they're going to have these sales to you every period that you're going to have to need the raw materials for your company. So anyway, let's say you purchase materials that list price is your price that's listed out there for your average customer before any discounts. So materials that list for $8,100. How much do you pay? So see, look at this, 8%, 8 over 100. Now again, the 8 represents the discount. 100 represents the total or the starting amount. In this case, that's the list price, right? So we have the 8,100. Does that represent the discount or the list price? List price. We cross multiply and divide. 8 times 8,100 divided by 100 is 648. The 648 is the amount of the discount. Is that what we're looking for here? We want to know how much do you pay. Can we find that from the 648? Yes, we can. We're going to take our list price of $8,100. We're going to subtract the $648. And that'll give us $7,452, correct? Is the amount we paid. Now, you'll notice I put this way over on the edge and left some room here. I did that deliberately because I want to take a little closer look at these numbers. The 8,100 is the list price, or the starting amount. We subtracted from that a discount to get the amount that we paid. And we talked about this yesterday in a word problem. When we're dealing with percents, every number is described by two things. Or every item is described by two numbers, I should say. Over here, it's described by the dollar amounts, but it's also going to be described by percents. And in this problem, we have the 8% discount. So that goes here. That's the 8% describes the discount. And in any percent problem, there's always another percent. That percent is the 100%, the whole thing, or the base amount. And here the 100% represents the list price. With that information, what percent is the percent paid? Well, just like the dollar amounts go list price minus discount equals amount paid, the percents have to too. 100% minus 8 is 92%. The percent paid is 92%. So what that's saying is, rather than doing this, finding 8% and having to subtract it back out, what we could have done was just found 92% of our 8,100. We cross multiply and divide this, it's going to give us 7,452. It gives us the amount we paid without having to subtract it back out. Now, in a problem like this, it's not much difference in work to do it either way. But there are problems where you have to do it one way or another. For example, let's say that after a 10% discount, you pay $7,560. How much did you save? Looking at this one, how would you approach it? Okay.
Equals 7,560 over.
Okay. So you put the 7,560 in there. Well, take a look at this quick. What does the 10 represent? The discount, right? The 100 represents the list price or the full price, right? Does the 7,560 represent the amount of the discount? No. Does it represent the list price? No. It represents how much we paid. It doesn't represent either one of those values. Okay. If we do 90 over 100, the 100 is still representing the list price. The 90 represents, that's the amount we paid after the discount. So the 7,560 goes here. We cross multiply and divide. 100 times 7,560 divided by 90 is going to be what? 8,400? Does that look right? What's that? $8,400 is right. So is that our answer, $8,400? We want to know how much did you save. So we have to take 8,400 minus 7,560 to get $840 is the amount that was saved. Now on a percent decrease or a discount problem like this, which is a version of a decrease or increase problem, sometimes rather than starting with the percent, it's easier to start out with the words that are involved. So in a problem like this, you might just write out list price minus discount equals the amount paid. Just like I did up above. And as we said, each item is described by a percent and some other number. We're dealing with dollars here, so it might be dollars over here. The discount was 10%. I know that list price is 100%. That's the full amount. And I'm given that we paid $7,560. That goes on the dollar side. Well, what can we find from here really quickly? The amount paid is what percent? 90. It's 100% minus 10% is 90%. Are we looking for the list price or the discount? Discount. So now out of this table, I need one row that has both numbers. I have that right here, the amount paid. I have the 90% and the $7,560. Then, of course, I need the row that has what I'm looking for. I'm looking for this right here. Do I have the piece of information on the other side? Yes, I do. So that means that this row I'm going to ignore for now. I'm just going to do 10 times 7560 divided by 90 gives me the $840. It shortens my calculation up. Here was a case where I didn't need the 100%. I was comparing the 10% discount to the 90% paid. After a 15% work slowdown, hourly production is 1,020 parts. Find the production rate before the slowdown. So once again here, we have a decrease of something. So let's write out the words. We have the production rate before the slowdown minus this decrease. Now the words you put in here really don't matter as long as you know what they represent. You could say this was the higher rate or before slowdown or just before like I did. You could do minus the decrease or minus the slowdown or whatever. And you can put down after or current rate or whatever you want to put down here. The words don't matter as long as you know what they represent. And now here they're represented by a percent. This time they're not represented by a dollar amount. They're just represented by the number of parts on the other side. But it's the same concept. What's the 1,020 representing? The after, the number of parts after the slowdown. What do we have for percents? 15% goes for decrease, and good catch. We always have the 100. That'd be our starting amount, or our before. Which means that the after percent is 85. What are we looking for? Are we looking for the amount of the decrease? Or we're looking for the before rate? So in this case, we don't need that middle row. I'll get rid of it. Because I have to have the bottom row because that's the one I have both numbers for. And the top row has what I'm looking for. So now I can just use right inside the table here. I don't even have to rewrite it. I can do 100 times 1,020 divided by 85. $1,200 parts was the production rate before the slowdown. What do you think?
Write one more and see if we can do it by ourselves.
That's where we were going with it. Yep.
The hard one, not easy. Like the hardest one.
The hardest one I can come up with.
Not the hardest, but like be
Okay.
careful with it.
Let's say after a 6% pay cut. They might be wondering, why would we want that? And between 2008 and 2012, several of my friends that still work in the industry had to take pay cuts to keep their job. The companies basically said either everybody's got to take a pay cut or we've got to lay off a certain number of people and everybody else is just going to have to pick up the pace and work harder. So it's not uncommon. When there's an economic slowdown, pay cuts do happen. So after a 6% pay cut, you earn that didn't work. That'll do it. You earn $15.04 per hour. What was the amount of of your hourly pay cut. See if you can find that in your notes, and we'll go over it in just a minute. We'll just say your old pay minus your cut equals your new pay. The 1504 is your new pay. 6% cut, old percent was 100% your old pay. So you're going to subtract 94% is your new pay. Are we looking for the amount of the old pay? No, we're looking for how much is the cut. We're looking for this amount. So 6 times 1504 divided by 94 is 96 cents. How have you got 96 cents as your pay cut? 94? You found 6% of 1504. Yeah. Can't do that. Nope, because the 6% isn't based off the 1504. It's based off of whatever the old price was. And you don't know the old price. These are tricky.
Just do like 94 divided by 1504 and that
You could
minus the 1504.
You could have done 1504, yeah, is 94%, or you, like you said, just divide by 0.94. And that's going to give you that the old wage was $16 an hour. Then you can subtract to get the 96. Yes. Anybody get that one right? No.
Do another one.
Do another one. I'm thinking yes. Oh, let's say a 25% cut in production. Puts you at $860 parts per hour. How much did you produce before? So like in this one, you'll have the old production minus your cut or your slow down, however you want to word it. And you get your new production. New production is 860. The cut was 25%. Old had to be 100%. So that makes the new 75%. Just 100 minus 25. And we're looking for what the old rate was here, so I don't need to cut anymore. So now 100 times 860 divided by 75 is
46.666666. And a third, 2/3, I'm assuming.
yeah, 1146.67. I didn't plan that out very well, did I? You guys get the picture, though. What about the other side of it? What if it's an increase? So let's say that you're told that you will receive a 4% bonus on your next check. Your check before bonus is, let's go to $780. how much is your check after the bonus? So this one's slightly different. Here you have your check. I'll word it a little bit. Well, you can word them however you want. Here you have your earnings plus your bonus equals your check or your pay. You have 780 was your earnings. Your bonus is 4%. 100% was your beginning amount of your earnings. What you're going to get paid is 104%. 100 plus 4, because you're adding on, not subtracting out this time. And we want to know how much is your check after the bonus. That's right here. You can ignore that. Cross, multiply, and divide. 104 times 780 divided by 100. Giving us $811.20. Now here's one where you could have just found 4% of 780 and added it on. It would have worked.
Or you could just multiply it by 1.04.
That's what I did on my calculator if you were watching. It's just the same as multiplying by 104 and dividing by 100 is the same as multiplying by 1.04. So here again, we didn't necessarily need to do the table. You could have found the 4%, added it on, or just find 104%. But there are times where, let's say that one of your products, after an 8% increase, a product costs $450. Let's say you go to return it and they say, you don't have your receipt or whatever. We're only going to give you the price before the price increase. So find the price before the increase. I'll let you guys try this one, see what you come up with. So here we have, I'm just going to say the before plus the increase equals the after. Like I said before, the words you use don't matter as long as you know what they represent. So the 450 is the price after. 8% is our increase. 100% would be the before. So the after price is 108. We are looking for the price before, which is that one. So I don't need this middle row. So it'll be 100 times 450 divided by the 108, which come out to be like $416.67. If you had just found 8% of 450 and subtracted it, you'd come out at 415. Yeah, or 414. Yeah, why does that not work? Because the 8% does not come out of 450, it came out of the price before the increase. You cannot find 8% and subtract it because this is not 100%. The 8% applies to whatever was connected to the 100%. The starting amount. And if you don't have the starting amount, that 8%, you cannot find the 8% and add or subtract it. I'm going to give you guys some time to mill these over in your homework. In your book, little book, this is unit 23. Of course, the odds. Give those a shot, see what happens. We'll talk a little bit more in the next hour.